Hmm. Good morning, Chercon. Hope you're all adequately caffeinated. Welcome to day two. Wait, sorry, this is the mic on? Can you all hear me? Well, I'm kidding. This is recorded as it's a bit too early for me to do this live, but I'm here on Discord. Just come say hi. I'm really sorry I couldn't be with you. I'm kind of stuck in Melbourne, Australia. But hey, let's get on with it. So, hello, friend. In Meatspace, I'm designated as Dan. Many years ago, running a small business online, I experienced the fragility of my online business by experiencing a data breach. Hey, and that started me on a journey to learn how to, well, secure the business. Almost a decade later, still a noob, this seems to be no easier. But like for many, 2020 and 2021 prompted a lot of reflection as we collectively face this unprecedented crisis. This talk was born from a bit of that reflection and to share some of the thoughts that has been kind of like brewing in my head around the cyber pains and that small businesses have been facing. So here goes. Oh, and if you're, I know it's early, but if you're taking a shot with every mention of the word cyber, you might want to get a new bottle ready. So let's crack on. As cyber attacks become literal barbecue stoppers in the last year or so, we need better cybersecurity. The need for better cybersecurity has never been more clear, as cyber is literally integral to our lives. And all of these issues are just the ransomware bits. We agreed we agree that everyone needs to do cybersecurity better. 100%. But I'd also like to believe that it's fair to say that for 99% of organizations and workers, cybersecurity is not your job nor expertise. Like most of us, we go to the doctor for medical help. How many times have we heard the following? Organizations must have more cyber awareness training, hire more cyber people, spend more on cyber, or just mandate and demand more cybersecurity. Simple, right? Problem solved. Yeah. So, what would it cost? Well, an oversimplified look at what is involved in do security better for the typical business operator. We would probably need advisory services to guide us on what options we have and what we should do. Assurance services to benchmark and tell us what we really should be concerned about. Then the engineering to put all those recommendations into place and then run that. If things go wrong, we'll need help to investigate what went wrong and recover, get all of that back, help us back on our feet. We also need to make sure that everything is done well and right, have a good plan, place, and manage all of that. That's a lot. Let's take a look at the first step. Getting advice to get started. We all know that blindly self-medicating can sometimes be harmful. So let us seek some help. How much would that cost? Let's pin that. We'll come back to it in a moment. So why are we talking about small business here? It's because they represent the overwhelming majority of business. And and it's critical to our economy and community. Yet, we often hear how unprepared small businesses are for cyber attacks. To do that, let's first take a look at what a typical small business. Following the definition of what a small business is, according to the Australian Tax Office, it is a business with turnover of under 10 million. This and shows that typically they are employing under 20 employees and makes an average net profit of $20,000 to $30,000 per year. Digging further from another small business study, it was found that an average of $275 per full-time staff per year is the budget for security. Why not more? Often, the decision is between paying salaries to put food on the table at a staff member or spending on cybersecurity. But hunger speaks volumes. Though cybersecurity threats stay pretty top of mind. With these constraints in mind, back to that earlier question. How much would advice cost? Well, based on various chats with friends, I'm hearing rates from around 900 to 3,000 Australian a day, varying from boutiques to big multinational firms. Now, for some of the consultants watching this, how many days of effort would we want to give meaningful and specific advice? 1 day, 3 days, or how much in total would that cost? What is the minimum contract value that the consultancy that you work for would even consider accepting? I've heard some consultancies and seen some of them where there is an expectation of upwards of $10,000 minimum contract value. How does that make sense for small business? I had to guess that maybe some of you listening to this that have volunteered to help out pro bono a few small businesses that have unfortunately fallen victim to cyber attacks due to how unaffordable professional help sometimes can. That brings us to the cyber poverty line at which an otherwise sustainable organization unable to afford access to adequate cybersecurity healthcare necessities to reach a defined minimum standard. This sounds very much like the challenges that we've just talked about that small business is facing. This was very much inspired by an interview in the Risky Business podcast earlier year and talks by Andy Nates. Like how in Australia and New Zealand, we as a society has come to agree that seeing a general practitioner for healthcare shouldn't bankrupt you. Can we expect the same of our cyberspace? But why does the cyber poverty line even matter? In the last 18 months, we have never been more dependent on our connectivity cyberspace. From telecommuting to work, to ordering groceries online during the lockdown, to vaccine passports in an app. Twice for organizations, many had to rapidly transition online to survive, especially during the virus lockdown. Cybersecurity is no longer just a fun greenfields playground, but have now become the underpinning of our very life. As cyberspace is the environment on which we depend on to work, live in, we can learn so much more from the parallels that we find in health and safety. So, doing that, learning from the COVID-19 crisis, I've been told that I should be getting advisory from professionals, specific guidance for my unique situation. keep isolated to help limit the spread and protect those who are more vulnerable. Then perform testing so that we understand where the virus is at and that you have a benchmark, know whether you're infected. We rely on good engineering to develop a vaccine and incident response to help manage the whole situation and chart a path out of it. Good threat management overarching it all to make sure that it is a proportional response and that everyone is well informed and communicate and aware. Well, as a we have also come to understand that a healthy society is critical to a product. With the parallel consequences we see from COVID-19, doing nothing is not really. So, what can small business afford? Earlier, we know the typical profits from a small business makes. We know the typical profits of a small business and what they make per year. That's about $20,000 to $30,000. We say we consume all of that, and that's our play. Isn't a lot. If we use the amount budgeted by headcount, we are looking at about $5,500 for any staff or so. That's about 5 consulting days with. That's rough. And we're only talking about advisory here, like, going to see your GP to get advice on what to do next. We need to do better. But hope is not all lost. For small businesses, are we totally screwed? No. No, we're not. Despite the adversity, we can do relatively well by taking small, smart steps. One of them is making smart technology choices and to stand on the shoulders of giants. How powerful is this? In a previous role at security, out of the hundreds of small business customers that we monitored, only 2 were vulnerable to this. Surprisingly small numbers despite expectations and various commentaries out there. Why? Well, we found that most were running SaaS email solutions such as Google Workspace and Microsoft 365, which was not affected, thus kept them safe. So let's shift the odd favor with 3 simple survival tips. Smart choice of technology, good cyber hygiene, and, well, when things go wrong, have an incident response plan. Select an email provider with secure defaults, such as Google Workspace or Fastmail, and use platforms which have and continue to invest in security more than you can as a small business. Tools such as Xero for accounting and Shopify for your e-commerce store, to name a few examples. This will give you a solid base to start with. But every service provider always says that, well, we take your security seriously. But do they really? Google just released a little toolkit and checklist called the Minimum Viable Security Product at msvp.dev. Go through them, ask your vendor those questions, and then let your bullshit meter judge the response. It's a good start. Take a look at the questions. It covers some of the topics that we already talked about here, and some of the other talks that has already happened at JerCon. Like we're used to with COVID-19 messaging, there's 4 simple things that we can do to keep good cyber hygiene. Good manager and use unique passwords for all sites. Easier to remember one strong password then multiple different ones for each separate account. Like reusing tissues after you've sneezed into it. Sticky and unclean. Likewise, reusing passwords are. Multi-factor authentication. Enable that on all the things that you can. So that if your passwords are lost or stolen, it's you a second layer of defense, like wearing a mask to protect yourself from COVID, even though you've been double vaxxed. Possible, keep your software up to date. Leave auto update on your phones and computers and all the other softwares that you may have, like vaccination for your software, keeping it continuously protected. Have a backup plan because accidents do happen with your data. Get a service like Backblaze to back up your computer's data. It's like being able to reload a save game for your data and critical systems. That covers the little things that we can do to practice good hygiene. Unfortunately, disasters do happen. Good preparedness means good. It means safety. Likewise, we need to be prepared in the cybers. Have a plan written out, printed out, because you may not have access to your technology. It should contain details such as who's in charge, making all the decisions, and make sure that they're empowered to do so. A list of who to call for help and who needs to know. This may include contacting your IT service provider and your cyber insurance provider, as they may have established relationships and resources that may help you out. Also, your local computer emergency response team, such as CERT-NZ and ACSC, are a brilliant resource. Put down their contact details so that you can make sure you are able to reach them. Then, write the steps you need to take down in an action plan so that you can just follow that, as trying to figure out what to do in a crisis can be more than a bit challenging. Some of these steps should include calling your bank, your internet service provider, your mobile phone provider to make sure they take steps to help you secure your accounts. Often in such plans, include steps needing to communicate the incident and things that are happening and actions people should take with staff, customers, and stakeholders. Find out what your obligations are under any mandatory breach notification laws and prepare all of these ahead of time so that they are ready to send and you have covered all that you need to say. Hopefully, these 3 simple survival tips will help shift the odds in your favor while attempting to survive, well, below the cyber poverty line. There's one more thing that you can do. Let the Good Samaritans help. There are hackers that would like to help you be more secure. Support us and welcome us with open arms. You can do so by making that known to us by having a responsible disclosure policy. Go to policymaker.disclose.io, get started on that. Hopefully, these tips will give small businesses a fighting chance. But the problem persists. And not a substitute for all the cybers. There's a lot we need to do. If you're a technology product small business, you should definitely check out Jeremy Scott's talk from yesterday. Really good talk with lots of things that would help you there. How can small business afford to get good cyber safety outcomes? Get a full package? Well, we've already seen how much they cost. Especially with the current cost of participation. I don't have a solution. Still trying to figure that one out. But what I do know is that if our experience with COVID-19 is anything to go by, doing nothing, that's not an option. With over 90% of small businesses being businesses being small business, okay, in a landscape where cyberspace is becoming more hazardous with the cost of access help growing, what would we want our futures to be like? And do better. What can we collectively do to tackle cyber poverty? What can we do more sustainably beyond the once-off consulting that we often fall back to? Let us hack ourselves more cyber resilient community, the kind of future. Thank you for indulging in my rant. Questions? On the chat and work on this together, reach out. I'm on Discord. Yeah. Thanks. Bye.